So you've decided that you're going to give film a chance. Fantastic, great. So what's the first thing you got to do? Go and get some film. But that can be a little bit tricky. Now, even though I've been shooting film for a while now, I still don't know all the film brands out there. There are tons and tons and tons, especially for 35 millimeter. Fortunately for me, I don't really shoot much 35 millimeter. But even in medium format, there's quite a lot out there. In color film, not as much. But in black and white film, which I imagine most people want to get started in, there is still quite a bit. So I decided that I would go through some of the most common ones that you're going to come across and some that are pretty ubiquitous in the field. So first thing we're going to cover is HP5. It's, you know what? I'm not even going to tell you what they're like. I'm going to let you look at the video and the results themselves, and then you can kind of decide which one you want to start out with. So the ones that we're going to be going over are Ilford HP5. We're going to be going over T-Max 400. Ilford XB2. Now XB2 is a little bit different because it's developed in C41 chemistry, so it's not something that you can develop with normal black and white chemistry. But it's nice because you can actually take it to a film lab and they might be able to do it, like your more common film labs, like your Walgreens, your Walmarts, Costco's, that sort of thing, if they still develop film. But this is kind of the odd man out, C41, but we're going to give it a shot anyway. Tri-X 400. And Ilford Delta 400. These are all very, very common film stocks that you're going to see everywhere. They're really, really easy to get and not too expensive. Yeah, so let me just, I'm going to shoot just one scene with them, and then we're going to compare and contrast and see what the differences are between the film stocks. And then I'm not going to make any judgment call on them. You decide what you want to do with your film. Don't let people tell you, oh, well, this is sharper and this is... Don't worry about all that. Okay, you decide what you want. As far as a developer, I'm using HC110. HC110 is really, really cheap, and it's a good developer all around. There are too many variables as far as developers, developing time, agitation, all this kind of stuff. So we're going to cut out all of that crap. All of that is great when you get really, really advanced. I'm not there yet. I don't really deal with that kind of stuff. I like this because it just produces good results all the way around. You're going to use different developers, like if you start wanting to really maximize your grain or minimize your grain or sharpness, any of that stuff, but we're not going to deal with any of that right now. We're going to just do these 5 stocks, HC110. I'm going to be shooting it with my Mamiya RB on 180 millimeter. I'm going to stop it down, I think, to f16, so we get some nice sharp results, and then I'll just put up the results, and you tell me what you think. Thanks. All right, so I spent the last day and a half shooting, developing, and scanning this film, and it was amazingly boring. But I think I got some pretty cool results, actually some interesting results. As far as the subject goes, I thought about, since I do portraits, having someone sit there so I could just do pictures of someone's face. But I didn't really think I could subject someone to that, just numbly running through 5 different films in a row for no reason other than just to sit there with a straight face. So instead I did this little still life. I'm not a still life shooter, but I thought, hey, this would work just as well as anything else, just to give you kind of a general idea of what these films are like. I think the results are kind of interesting. You may not take what you will from them, but let's take a look and see what we got. So first things first, let's take a look at the image as a whole. This is the still life such that it is. Again, like I said, I am not a still life photographer, but hey, considering that, I think it's not too shabby. But the image I think is good because it's got a lot of crisp lines in it. Keep in mind, I did use a Epson V700, so it is a flatbed scanner, so it's not going to be the ultimate quality in scans, but I figure something comparable is going to be what 90% of users who do shoot film are going to use if they're scanning their film at home. So this is what the image looks like. Pretty good, I think, for what it is. Now, let's take a look at the individual film stocks. We're going to start over here with T-Max all the way to the left. T-Max is what they call a T-grained film. It's one of the newer formulations. I believe Delta 400 is also a T-grain film. One thing you're going to notice, it's fairly sharp, pretty crisp lines. It's not, the darks haven't, the shadows are not too deep. It's kind of very middle of the road as far as texture goes, as far as noise and grain go. Moving over to the XP2, this is where I was actually really surprised. The XP2 by Ilford is actually a C41 formulation, and it even says on the box, it says that it's sharper and less noise than regular traditional black and white films are. And they're right. I mean, it is by far the sharpest of all the images. Yeah, just lots and lots of contrast, but very sharp. The very little noise. Moving on to the Tri-X. The Tri-X is, I would say, the grainiest, but it also offers a little bit more oomph, I guess you could say. It's still reasonably sharp, but definitely a lot more grain. And we'll zoom in on these a little bit later so you can kind of see what I mean. The HP5 is kind of a little bit of a vanilla as well. HP5 has a similar grain, but not quite as pronounced as the Tri-X. But it is not quite as sharp as the Tri-X either, although it does look, everything just kind of looks very gray with the HP5. So I imagine the HP5 is probably going to be really good if you want a maximum amount of tones and you want to just add your own contrast in post. The HP5 is probably going to be a good choice for you. The Delta 400 is very sharp. Everything I've heard has said that it's going to be closer to the T-Max, but I don't really see it. And you'll see in the when I come closer. Actually, let me go ahead and zoom in right now to those. So you can see the T-Max all the way to the left. Like I said, it's going to be very middle of the road, not too pronounced of grain, but reasonably sharp. Just very baseline. The XP2 is probably still, I would say, the sharpest of all of them with the least amount of grain. The Tri-X, again, sharp, but deeper shadows, much more grain than than that C41 or the T-grain film. The HP5 is similar to the Tri-X, but the shadows just aren't quite as deep, and it's not quite as sharp either. The Delta 400 all the way on the end, it seems to be kind of, I'd almost put it as like a middle of the road between the Tri-X and the HP5, which is weird because supposedly it has a different kind of grain structure. Maybe it's the HC110. Maybe that's just not the best thing to develop Delta 400 in as far as minimizing the grain. I think it still looks good, but it's still has a little bit more pronounced grain than, say, the T-Max, and definitely a lot more than the XP2. So yeah, so all in all, I hope this has been a little bit informative for you. I tend to shoot my large format work with HP5, but I don't know. I might end up trying out Tri-X just for some giggles, just to get some really deep contrasty work. But large format photography is a lot more forgiving, and also Tri-X doesn't have a 400 speed formulation for 4x5. Instead, it's 320. T-Max I have used already for 4x5, and it's been great. I do prefer HP5 though. It just has struck me as just a little bit, I don't know, there's something about it. I think because the grain structure is more pronounced, it comes off as a little bit more contrasty than the T-Max does. So I've definitely been enjoying using the HP5 lately. And it's, not too expensive as well. XP2, unfortunately, it's not available in 4x5, but I would definitely try it out if it was. I'm very surprised at the quality that the XP2 offers. It doesn't have that character that the Tri-X does, or even the Delta 400, but it's still a very clean, crisp film. I'd say it's probably the closest to a digital style look. But yeah, so anyway, like I was saying, I hope that helps. And if you have any questions at all with my
MO or how I did this, just let me know. Again, there are too many factors out there as far as what kind of developer did you use, what kind of agitation, so on and so forth. I tried to be uniform across the board with all of these, and this is what I got, so this is what I'm showing you. So if you have any questions, just let me know. All right, thanks guys. Have a good one.